Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 172 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 28 of A Storm of Swords, that's Sansa 3.
As always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I am doing well. I should be ready to go here. We recorded our first few wildfire side chats for our sustainers right before we started recording this episode, so my voice
They're going to be a lot of fun.
They are, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Good questions. We got some good questions right off the bat.
Yeah.
Hopefully our answers are equally up to the challenge.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were fun to create, and I hope they'll be fun to listen to as well. So
I agree.
There's still a question mark over the video, right?
Yes, we recorded it, both video and audio, and we'll see which we go with.
Yeah.
I've already watched a preview of both, and I hate my face, so...
you had to watch the preview for that?
How are you doing?
What's going on? We're post-Christmas. How was your festive season?
It's been very good. It's been very good. Yeah, I got a couple really nice things. I did finally set up my iPhone, so I am now...
you know what? I knew that. Because
you
all across the Ghost of Harrenhal stuff, things popped up saying new sign-in on iPhone, new sign-in on iPhone. I was like, oh, he's finally got round to that iPhone.
I put it off as long as I could. We bought them back in early December, and I decided, nope, everybody but Molly, because she destroyed her phone, has to wait until Christmas, which gave me pretty much a month to mentally prepare myself. But eventually I did have to get around to doing it since I was paying for the phone. So I'm saying,
arguably,
I'm not hating it yet like I thought I would. It's been okay so far. I find myself not looking at it as much as I did my previous phone. I don't know what that's all about.
That might be a good thing.
Right, yeah. But my other really fun gift that I have been enjoying is Stacy got me a stand-up arcade style. There's a video game called Golden Tee. It's a golf game. You see it in a lot of bars. It's got a little like a ball that you roll to hit shots and stuff. And I'm not really a video game player. I stopped playing video games when I was a teenager. But we had this game available to us, a trip that we took to the mountains, and my friends and I that we were with really enjoyed playing it, so she got it for me for Christmas, and I've been enjoying it here in the basement.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah. I'm terrible, but that's okay. I'm having fun. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
How about you? How's it been going?
Well, just coming back to the cell phones thing, actually, we were having a discussion with someone, I don't remember exactly who it was, and Carson said that of all the members of the family, the person who uses their cell phone the most is... And she said me.
That's not. If that's the case, you're just you have my calls blocked or something.
Because I never use my cell phone. But she said it was me. I was like, as you can imagine, I was scandalized by this comment.
Yes, I agree.
And I fought my corner, but
I need to see evidence to support that claim.
I mean, really, if that's true, we can just get rid of our cell phones.
Right.
Because they're not using theirs at all.
Just go back to landline.
Yeah. We had a nice time. We're going out of town for New Year, so that should be fun.
Oh, yes. Right. Yeah. You're getting ready to leave fairly soon, right? That's why we're recording so early in the morning.
Yeah, we too are hightailing it to the mountains to get some nice views.
Yes. Stacey asked if that's where you were going. I said, I don't know. He hasn't told me yet. He just told me that they're leaving.
Yeah. So that'll be good.
So you have a story, I believe.
I do have a story.
He's been kind of hinting at this story with me. He's been setting it up for a while here, for the past couple days.
It's possible I've oversold it, but so before Christmas, Carson works at an elementary school. They had their work Christmas party.
Uh-huh.
Now, elementary school teachers have a lot of steam to blow off. I totally understand.
Sure, yes.
But boy, did they blow off steam. It was we had fun. We had a great time. I drank more than I normally drink because I one of the other teachers' husbands was our designated driver, so I normally I'm driving to this kind of thing, so I don't get to drink. But this time I had quite a few, and I was quite. I'm a gregarious drinker. When I drink, I get more gregarious.
Sure. Yes.
And the evening moved to karaoke later on.
Oh boy. Okay.
And I'd had enough drinks where it was not inconceivable that I would do karaoke, but I hadn't had so many drinks that it was inevitable that I would do karaoke. So I was in that safe zone.
Right.
But normally, if someone says, "Do you want to do karaoke?" it's a hard no. I don't want to do karaoke because it's silly. Nobody wants to hear my voice,
I can relate.
No way I'm doing it.
Yes.
But I have a kryptonite. I have a weakness.
Uh-oh.
And that is the song,
ABBA.
Take Me Home, Country Road by John Denver.
Okay. Yes.
If that's coming on, I'm getting up there and singing it because I can't help myself. I got to sing that song. This stems from a trip to China when I was 20-something, where I sang that song.
Odd place for that song to stem from, but okay,
I sang that song at a Chinese karaoke bar with a Welsh guy, a Finnish guy, and a Dutch woman singing an American song. It was very strange.
In China.
And to an audience of Chinese people who were just like open mouthed. Like, what the heck are these? So I'm sitting there just having fun, and the guy running the karaoke says, "Someone signed up for Country Road." And I was like, uh-oh.
Here we go.
And he said, "Who signed up for this?" And there were no takers.
It was
and
Carson.
Carson had also had a few. She was like, "Go on, do it." And she pushed me up there. So
you're being set up here.
Possibly. Me and the assistant principal went up together to sing it as a duet. And I got up there, and it's been a while since I've heard that song, so I was a bit rusty when the first few words came up. I was like, I don't really remember this, I'm figuring once I get to the chorus, I'll get into my stride, but for the first part, I'm just like, I mean, the words are there, but I don't quite know what the tune is for the first little bit of it. But this goes on, and we don't get to the chorus, and
what
words keep coming up, and I'm like, I'm not remembering this song at all. How drunk am I? It is not the song I thought it was. Apparently, James Taylor has a song called Country Roads, and it's that song. A song that I have no idea how it goes. So I'm there in front of 100 people composing a song as I sing it.
You say as you go along.
So I turn to the assistant principal in the hope that she at least can carry this, and she looks back at me like, I don't know what the heck this song is either, and I'm like, Eventually, someone jumps on stage and takes the mic from me. I am mangling this so badly.
Oh, wow. You got gonged off of
yes,
off of a karaoke song.
It was, oh my God. I swear, I woke up the next day with more grey hair than I went to bed. I was so mortified.
Couldn't the DJ have just restarted with the right Country Road song?
Somebody signed up for this song. It wasn't someone setting me up. Someone really did sign up for this song.
Carson signed you up on the sly. Okay. I see.
Oh my God. So I still have no idea what that song was, but neither does anyone in the crowd because I was
apparently. It's whose song did you say it was?
James Taylor.
It's not one of his more famous songs, I guess.
Not to me. God,
I like James Taylor too.
I feel my blood pressure spiking just thinking back on that. I mean, I'm just grinning like a fool. Like, please forgive me for ruining your evening with this.
Well, hopefully most of them had reached the point where any entertainment on stage was good enough for them.
They had.
Plus, there's something too watching someone completely bomb on stage. There's that train wreck effect where you can't look away.
I don't mind bombing because I have a terrible singing voice. That's one thing.
Right.
But bombing because I have no idea what the heck I'm singing, that's just not fair.
That's true. Yes, there's a difference. Oh, that's That's good stuff, though. I wish I could have been in the crowd. I would have.
You don't really. It was. I mean, honestly, you'd have been entertained for a minute, and then you'd just been like dying for me,
looking at my shoes,
exactly
the walls.
Exactly. Anyway, let's get down to business. How did we leave Sansa Stark? Last we saw of Sansa, she was being fitted for a new dress by Cersei's own dressmaker. She was envying and pitying Margaery Tyrell in equal measure. The future queen has such self-assurance and equanimity in the face of her upcoming nuptials, hence the envy. But just because Loras was made a Kingsguard doesn't mean she's safe from Joffrey, hence the pity.
Right. Sansa
confided the Tyrells' plan to abscond her from King's Landing and marry her to their eldest son Willas to inveterate drunk and fool Sir Dontos, causing Mackelly and Simon to question her wisdom in sharing this plan.
Uh-huh.
When you write it down, as I had to just hear, when I wrote this down, I was like, it really does seem like a terrible plan.
When you look at it from the right light, it's a terrible idea.
He went full rain on her parade mode. They just want you for your claim. They're Lannisters with flowers. He is no Florian.
Right.
Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one? Did we write this summary? I feel like I ducked this one somehow. Why do we have a summary here?
We do have a summary here, and it was not written by you or me. It was provided to us by our Royal Kingsguard sustainer, Genevieve.
Thank you, Genevieve. That's awesome.
Thank you, Genevieve. I've read through it. It's very good stuff. So here it goes. Sansa's gown is ready, and now she has to get ready for it. She's bathed, her hair brushed, her nails trimmed, and she's doused in perfume. Cersei herself comes to observe the dress fitting, where Sansa is dressed head to toe in new clothes. The dress is lovely, luxurious, and expensive. It hugs Sansa in all the right places. Both the seamstress and Sansa are very happy with the result.
Sansa twirls around in her new dress thinking about how it will make Willas fall in love with her at first sight. Hopefully, he will even be so smitten as to forget that she had a claim to Winterfell. She's harking on that whole they only want you for your claim thing.
Right.
Cersei, on the other hand, has other plans. She asks for jewellery and then comments that Sansa looks so lovely that it is almost obscene to squander such sweet innocence on that gargoyle.
Sansa does a double take. What gargoyle? She asks. How could the queen know about Willas? Sansa, as you might expect, starts to panic. Cersei, however, commands a cloak be brought out. It's a maiden's cloak, a long white cloak with the direwolf of House Stark embroidered upon it. This is to be a wedding. The new dress now makes sense.
Sansa refuses to move, but Cersei insists that, as a ward of the crown, the king has decreed that she should marry Tyrion Lannister. Sansa despairs, realising that Dontos the Fool was right. The Tyrells, just like the Lannisters, only wanted her for her claim.
Upon leaving the dressing room, Sansa tries to run but is caught immediately. Sir Meryn Trant gives her a murderous look, but Sir Osmond Kettleblack is gentler and tells her to be brave. Sansa relents, and before she realizes, she's entering the sept where the wedding will be held.
Joffrey is waiting for her just outside the steps. "I'm your father today," he announces, and to further antagonize her, tells her that he could easily marry her to whomever he likes. At this point, Tyrion arrives and asks for a word with Sansa. He tells Sansa that he is sorry for the circumstances, and asks if she would prefer to wed Lancel Lannister instead.
Sansa's defeated. One Lannister or the other, what did it matter? They only wanted her for her claim. She tells Tyrion that she will marry whomever the king commands. Tyrion's not convinced that this is what she wants, but they both agree to do their duty. The Septon conducts the marriage rites while Sansa cries throughout the ceremony.
At the changing of the cloak, Joffrey takes the place of Lord Eddard Stark to remove Sansa's maiden cloak, copying a feel as he goes. Tyrion is then to replace it with the bride's cloak of Lannister Crimson. However, he's too short to reach Sansa's shoulders, and after a few failed attempts of getting Sansa to kneel, Joffrey orders Dontos down on hands and knees as Tyrion climbs up on the fool's back to cloak Sansa. They kiss, and then they are wed.
Throughout the wedding feast, while Tyrion chugs goblet after goblet of wine, Sansa tries to reconcile the disparity between the expectations she had for her own wedding versus the reality she's enduring. When the music plays, her husband doesn't even want to dance.
But he gets up and belts out a verse of The Bear and the Maiden Fair
to
the
Country
wrong
Roads.
tune. As Sansa broods, gallant Sir Garland Tyrell comes to ask her for a dance. Tyrion consents, and Sansa joins Garland on the dance floor. He expresses concern over how miserable she looks. She can only come up with an unconvincing, "I'm crying tears of joy." Sir Garland continues to say that Tyrion is not so bad, but then they're separated by the music.
Sansa dances through a string of partners, including Joffrey the Creep, who tells her that he will have her whenever he wants, just like King Aegon III or IV did with his women. When the music ends, Joffrey tries to start the bedding ceremony, but Tyrion won't have a bar of it. He grabs Sansa's hand, and they go to the bedchamber in the Tower of the Hand to consummate their marriage.
In the chamber, Tyrion asks Sansa to pour a cup of wine. She obliges and quickly drinks half her own cup, thinking that if she's drunk, the bedding won't be so bad. Head swimming, she asks Tyrion if she should undress. Tyrion ignores her question and talks about his first wedding night with Lady Tysha of House Silverfist. A short marriage for a short man. Sansa is confused, but says nothing.
Tyrion asks her how old she is, 13 when the moon turns, which doesn't improve the situation any. He tries to get on with it if it would please her. She says it would please her to please him. However, Tyrion gets mad at the courtesies, which is all the armor that she has. He tells her to remove her clothes. Fumbling, she does. Standing naked, stark naked, possibly?
Ah, good one.
Tyrion tells her that despite her being a child, which she corrects him, she has flowered, he wants her. He tells her that when she closes her eyes, he could be anyone she wants. She gets into bed and promptly closes her eyes.
Tyrion, however, tells her to open them. She obeys to find him sitting at her feet. "I can't do this," he says. He'll wait however long it takes for Sansa to trust him a bit more. Sansa looks at Tyrion, trying but failing to find beauty in him. She thinks about how she must have sinned that the gods would inflict her with such punishment. Sansa tells Tyrion that she may never want him to touch her. Tyrion, to his credit, climbs off the bed. "This is why the gods made whores for imps like me."
Well done, Genevieve.
So thank you, Genevieve.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Although I will note that there were some sort of alliterations in there that you and I would have avoided because we know how inept we are at stumbling over words.
172 of these. We know which. But no, yes, it's very well done. I enjoyed that summary.
So the mystery dress
is
white all along.
Right.
We should have guessed it. In fact, we did guess it.
We did, yes. It also happens to be the house color of House Stark. So it wasn't necessarily a giveaway of what was coming to Sansa. And it doesn't seem that there's a Westerosi tradition of white being a bridal dress.
Right, yeah. Actually, at the karaoke night, one of the teachers had a picture of her son's wedding in which the bride's mother was wearing white. And the teacher was like very disapproving of the whole thing.
Isn't there a whole rule against that?
Well, I think the general idea at sort of Western weddings is that nobody but the bride should wear white.
Right,
yes. Is the idea.
Exactly.
But honestly, when I saw the dress, it was like blue. I was like, really?
Are you sure this is white? How many of you had already?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest clue of all was the fact that the dressmaker made a point of not revealing the colour.
Right.
Dressmaker would have totally been like, "It's going to be green!"
Right. Yeah, that was set up by a decision by Martin, smartly, to keep us in suspense a little bit longer. It got blown when Tywin told Tyrion, "You're going to marry Sansa Stark."
Yeah.
It gave us a pretty good indication of what that dress was for, but...
Yes. Only from Sansa's point of view was this still a surprise.
Right, yes.
Everybody else was in on it. Tyrion is mostly a likable figure, but, this is a 12-year-old girl and he is in his 30s now. He does resist the temptation, but not before he's basically sexually terrorized her. So,
right. Yes.
It's not exactly to, hit 100% his credit.
Right. And, I think this is a similar age gap between Dany and Drogo when they were wed. I think she was 13, and I don't know exactly how old Drogo was, but he was certainly an adult. So, it makes you question why Martin set the ages as such in this story, which seems rather intentional. Many of the primary characters in the story are 16 and under. Bran and Arya were under 10 for a good portion of this story. And I think there's some other Stark kid that's even younger than them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really have a problem with it here because Tyrion is feeling the moral quandary of it. He's supposed to do this, but this, he's not doing it because he feels the revulsion of it. Much more problematic with the Drogo and Dany thing, because Dany supposedly falls in love with Drogo, but
right.
That's sort of like making excuse for molestation to me.
Yes. I see there. Yeah, you could see a distinction there.
Yeah.
Also, Martin, if he was writing true to medieval era, teenage brides were probably a lot more common at that time than in current day, which is challenging for us current day readers to stomach. But in reality, teenage brides were probably not all that uncommon, especially even being married to older men.
Right, but it doesn't mean that they weren't terrorized by it.
Right.
I'm sure they were.
Although Sansa seems to be more concerned with his looks and his size than his age. She never mentions that, he's so much older than me. It's mostly just about how unattractive she finds him.
Yeah, Willas would have been a little bit younger, but not
much. Yeah, I believe he's in his mid-20s. So still a pretty hefty age gap, especially for a 12-year-old. But
but to a certain extent, she would have been reared to kind of expect it, really. That she'd be marrying someone older, more than likely.
Yeah, I guess so. Yes. It would have been preferable for them to wait until she was older herself, but that's not what we get here.
Yes. Given that her father figure in this chapter is Joffrey Baratheon, first of his name, that's unlikely to be caring for Sansa top of his list.
Yes, that is true.
So of course, these are two POV characters, both Sansa and Tyrion, and he gave the chapter to Sansa, which is interesting choice. You could have also seen this from Tyrion's point of view and got. I mean, I think we all know what's going on in Tyrion's head. He had some lust, but he also had some compassion for a child,
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Right. Yeah, definitely. Tyrion's perspective would have been also pretty fascinating to see because he's also got someone else that he's in love with. Sansa theoretically has someone that she's hoping to fall in love with in Willas.
Right.
But Tyrion has an actual person that he has actually fallen in love with. So getting his mind, getting into his mind during this whole thing would have been worthwhile listening, reading, viewing.
You know me and forgetting things. Has Tyrion talked to Shay about this since it was announced?
He has not.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I'm slightly polluted by the TV show there because I watched quite a lot of the TV show around this chapter, and he has some excellent conversations with Shay.
Oh, okay.
In the TV show.
Yes,
which
I'm
kind
sure.
Of
Tyrion also has the added baggage of having been married once before. Yeah. A marriage that, to Tysha that ended so tragically, which he alludes to here with the Lady Tysha of Silverfist, of House Silverfist. But, they're both forced into this situation against their will. So, it's just like you said, it's a choice that Martin had to make, and possibly he made it because she's the bride, and she had been
Yeah.
expecting this her whole life.
Also-
She'd been dreaming about it.
Also, just a guess here, she doesn't have that much interesting going on in her life. Tyrion has interesting conversations with Varys, with Baelish,
True.
with
Yes.
Shay, with, Tywin. Those things save up a Tyrion chapter for those, perhaps.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
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 So she thinks she'll wear this dress when she meets Willas, Sansa does, at first, but the alarm bell should be ringing. I mean, why the heck would Cersei be making you... I mean, to keep this plan from Cersei.
Right.
But she's now making you the dress that you're going to meet Willas in. It seems unlikely. And
yeah, she thinks, I remember correctly back to the chapter when the dress was being made, she was thinking it was a dress for a wedding.
right.
Just not for her wedding. She thought it was going to be for the Marjorie Joffrey wedding.
Yeah. And then Cersei then sort of tips her hand by saying marrying that gargoyle. And of course, because Willas is crippled from a fall, Sansa thinks, wait, she knows about Willas? How
Right.
did that happen kind
How
of thing?
could she possibly know about Willas? This is a secret. Yeah, and then she goes through her head. I mean, it's a very short list of all who know. Marjorie, Lady Olenna, Marjorie's grandmother. And then she quickly discounts Dantos. He doesn't count, which is rather naive to discount Dantos,
Right.
as you
Right.
explained in the character recap.
So is it one of the two people who hatched the plan, whose brother is involved in the plan, or is it the drunken fool?
Who I
Which-
told.
Which one is likely to be the spiller of the beads here?
You mentioned, I think you read it in the summary, that Sansa thinks she must have sinned, for her to end up in this situation that she has ended up in. And no, she hasn't necessarily. I mean, I guess depending on what you consider a sin. But if she had
we're
just
going to go to the
kept her mouth
metaphysical
shut,
discussion here.
right,
Does sin
yes.
exist?
It's more about if you could just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Don't tell Cersei what your dad's planning on doing later that day with you and your sister, and don't tell Dantos what Marjorie and Olenna are planning on doing with you later with Willas. Just stop telling people things.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I have a little bit of a issue with this whole Sansa sort of feeling it's unfair or it's wrong that they only want her for her claim. She can't be that naive. I mean, it can't be news to her that she's being married because she's got a claim to Winterfell. That was always how she was going to be married. It was probably going to be a marriage to someone she cared about, having been sort of brokered by her loving parents.
Right.
But it was always going to be her claim. It was never going to be the stable boy.
Right. I guess maybe not necessarily her claim, but her house. Because theoretically, if Robb has kids, she won't have a claim.
Right.
So it's more of the stature of her house that she was being married for. But yes, your point still holds.
Yeah, but I mean, if Robb didn't have kids, then would Sansa's kids be...
Well, Bran would be
line?
next in line if he was not thought dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Bran and Rickon are thought dead, of course. Right?
Yes.
But even if Bran were thought to be alive, there's definitely a chance that he wouldn't be able to sire children. So you're getting down to the deeply forgotten in Rickon. And then you're back up to Sansa's children. And of course, Robb is risking his life every day. So,
Right.
It's... Yeah, I take your point. It is... Her claim becomes more important now because of the situation than it ever would have been had the 5 Stark children all been safe in Winterfell.
Yes, but your point is also true that she likely wasn't going to marry for love regardless.
Right.
Because she's a Stark, she's of a very noble, high house.
Right. It was going to be to someone like Willas Tyrell, or it was going to be to a Karstark, or somebody or a Bolton, somebody to cement the alliance in the north. Given that she was first daughter, I would have thought it would be a major house, a Lannister or a Tyrell.
Tyrell. Yeah, right. Yeah. Now I have a quick thought exercise for you here.
Uh-huh.
What if there were no Willas marriage plot or Marjorie and Joffrey marriage plot? What if she was still at this point thinking she was to marry Joff and then finds out, no, you're actually marrying Tyrion? How different would her reaction be to this idea? Because she's built this Willas Tyrell thing up to be puppy, playing with puppies on pleasure barges, and all these romantic things that she and Willas are going to do. But what if she was still thinking, I'm going to marry this monster in Joffrey Baratheon?
Again, I can answer that question quite directly, actually, from watching the TV show. Because in the TV show, they put a conversation between Marjorie and Sansa when Sansa was crying because she had to marry Tyrion. And she was wailing and moaning about the fact she had to marry Tyrion because she was told in advance in the TV show.
Okay.
And halfway through the conversation, it dawns on her that Marjorie is going to marry Joffrey.
She's like, why am I crying to you?
She's like, yes, her tears dry up a little bit at that point because she realizes it could be worse. So yes, okay. I think at least the TV show had an answer to that question. It could have been a lot worse than Tyrion.
Right.
And in fact, Marjorie makes the point all the way through that conversation. She's like, Tyrion's really not so bad. He seems like, he's thoughtful. And she says, has he ever been abusive to you? No. Has he ever been kind to you? Yes.
Okay.
He's definitely experienced. It's one of the things that she has, she says. So, and then it gets twisted round to, and Marjorie's marrying Joffrey, and Sansa's tears do dry up at that point.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. Yeah. As I was reading the chapter, I just kept thinking, it's all about expectation. She thought she was going to be the Lady of Highgarden and marry Willas Tyrell and all the romantic things. Whereas this would be like, oh, thank goodness, possibly.
Right, exactly. It depends where you're coming from. This is a low rung on the ladder, and she's coming from the top down.
Right,
but
yes.
She was on an even lower rung prior to
yes, and, she's young, and she's very materialistic and, very much into looks and beauty and gallantry and all that kind of thing. So I think... Peter Dinklage is a pretty good looking guy. I think the Tyrion in the book is supposed to be significantly less attractive than Peter Dinklage is.
And certainly more mutilated by the...
Right. Yeah, the axe to the face.
The axe, yeah. So Cersei takes care to make sure that Sansa's as beautiful as possible. I think some of that is to make the wedding seem legitimate. If she dragged her in rags, I think... there would be a greater claim to this was coerced and not legitimate. That's one of the reasons for that, I think.
Yeah, I wondered if it was done to expand the gap in attractiveness between them, making it all the more of a spectacle, possibly.
I'm sure Cersei didn't mind that happening. Yeah.
Certainly the timing of the revelation seemed rather calculated, springing the reality on Sansa for max effect right when Sansa's acknowledging how beautiful she is. She's the seamstress or someone says, "You look beautiful," and she says, "I am, aren't I?" And then Cersei says, "You are a lovely girl. It's almost obscene to squander such loveliness on that gargoyle." Yeah. And it seemed like she was very calculating when she revealed that, right as Sansa was at the max of her taking herself in.
Yeah. When she enters the sept, she feels all the eyes upon her and she feels very vulnerable. And this, of course, then reminds her of when Joffrey stripped her in front of everyone and Tyrion saved her, which is a nice thought to go into your wedding with Tyrion with.
Yes.
Sort of.
Right, yes. That's what causes her, when Osmond Kettleblack says, It's okay. You need to be brave. Wolves are brave. She thinks about that, about how he saved her there. He was the only one that did, and that's what gives her the courage to go through with this. And I found it odd that Osmond Kettleblack, turned cloak and spy, was the kind, comforting voice in the room when everyone else was.
The Kettleblacks are always interesting. Whenever they chip in with anything, they seem strangely thoughtful and not quite like the other, because a lot of the members of the Kingsguard just seem like sort of automatons that don't have much personality, right. But they have a little bit of personality.
Yeah, they're an interesting. Well, there goes that word again. We don't know where they came from, really. They just kind of showed up out of nowhere, and they feel out of character from a lot of the other Kingsguard. But I was thinking, I guess it probably helps for a spy to be charismatic. He was a spy for Tyrion initially, and now because Tyrion's lost his upper hand, now he's fully ingrained on Cersei's side. But probably helps to have some charisma if you're going to be a spy.
Or the opposite, be a complete wallflower that no one even notices. Those are two ways to spy.
Yes, that too.
So of course, Joffrey is heinous. He says that after murdering the woman's father, he says that he'll be her father for the day. And threatens to marry her to the pig boy to Ilyn Payne. And Sansa begs Joffrey not to marry her to his, and then she sort of like stumbles over, what's the relationship again between Tyrion and... double uncle.
Yes, I guess so. She has this awkward moment where she says, if you have any love that you've ever had for me, please don't make me marry your... And Tyrion finishes, uncle? And it's like, oof, not the best of ways to get a marriage off and running, but nothing about this marriage is the best of ways to get one off and running. So they go into the sept, and Sansa notices that Lully's, she's taking in everyone that's in attendance. One thing she notices is that there's no Tyrells in attendance, but then she's noticing who is here, and she notices Lully's is there, and she's crying for no reason apparent to Sansa. And she thinks to herself, well, good, let her cry. Maybe I'm going to cry too. But I was thinking, I wonder if Lully's handmaid is there along with her. And that just opens so many questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm polluted by the TV show where, of course, Shae was Sansa's handmaid, and so she was there for everything. She witnessed all of this. But yeah, it certainly does. So what can he do? I mean, she is a prostitute, and so it's not like she's going to refuse him now he's a married man. But there were sort of like suggestions of love between them, that they might have actually made a life together, and this is curtailed by this.
Yes, and here's where Tyrion's POV would have been very intriguing. Well, if Shae is in attendance, what is going through his head? And then, later at the feast, he's very miserable. Is it because of the embarrassment during the cloaking where he couldn't reach Sansa's shoulders to put the new cloak on? Or possibly is he miserable because he's sitting at the feast and Shae is staring daggers at him?
Right. Again, TV show? Yes, she was.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it makes you wonder. Shae knows that Tywin is not to know. No one is to know about her presence, mostly for her safety, but also because Tyrion was forbidden to bring her to court, and he has done exactly that.
I always remember that because I'm scared for Shae's safety because of it.
Right, yeah, exactly. Might she feel spurned and out their relationship to Tywin or Cersei or someone? It would be very detrimental, put her in a significant amount of danger, but I'm not sure she quite grasped how much danger she was actually in.
Yeah. It's always hard to tell with Shae if she grasps it and doesn't care, or if she just doesn't grasp it. But yeah, I mean, you've got to imagine that this would make her sort of think about her options and her future life,
Yes, right. Yeah, because it was what Tyrion wanted in the first place was to move her out of King's Landing. It was no longer safe, and she talked him into keeping her around. Maybe now she'll realize, okay, it's time for me to move on. Possibly, maybe she won't.
Yeah. I noticed here that you put in the notes that did no one think to bring a stool for Tyrion, and I'm wondering if you're remembering the TV show. You have a better memory than me. You might remember it. Because in the TV show, there was a stool, and Joffrey, as he handed Sansa over, took the stool away.
So Sansa thinks to herself, no one remembered to bring a stool. Mm-hmm. And I thought, possibly did someone remember and someone else remove it? Or was it deliberately forgotten? So yes, I think, the showrunners were kind of on that same wavelength. Like, it wouldn't have been that hard to remember to have a stool handy for, such a height disparity.
But I do think, I do feel like she should have bent the knee for him.
Yes.
Because the one thing is, they're both in this together. He's clearly as sorry as she is that it's happening, or maybe not quite that sorry. Make a partnership of it. Do him this one favor,
Yes. Yeah, and I think she feels, when she turns around and sees how embarrassed he is, how red his face is, she feels bad for having not done it. Yeah. But, so the way she ends up getting cloaked is Joffrey makes Dantas get down on his hands and knees, and Tyrion stands on his back and puts the cloak around her shoulders. And I found that to be a bit of symbolism with Tyrion cloaking Sansa on the back of Dantas, because we've discussed that Dantas knew about the Willas betrothal idea, and we discussed that he possibly might have been the leak to the Lannisters eventually found out about, because Kevin told us that Littlefinger brought the plan to marry Sansa to Willas, to Tywin, and we thought, well, possibly he got that information from Dantas. So if that's the case, which we haven't found one way or the other yet, then it is Dantas whose back this marriage is built upon.
Yes. Tyrion married her because of Dantas.
Right, because of what Dantas let slip.
Absolutely.
So, and of course, it's also a joke of a marriage, and he is the jester or fool. So,
So the Tyrells are not present at the wedding, so there's a couple of ways to interpret that. My initial reaction, again, I've read this chapter several times, but I've watched a lot of the TV show around this. Yeah. So the two are really merging for me here, but in the TV show they were present and they were aware, but felt they couldn't do anything. Uh-huh. In the book, they feel much less aware, and the whole thing is sprung like a trap. So it definitely feels like there's a possibility of two reasons they're not there. One is they were never invited. The Lannisters wanted this done without any hesitation, without any possibility of interruption. Or the second was they were invited and didn't want to go because they had their own plan and this foiled it,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, those are the two primary options. I guess if they weren't invited but showed up to the feast, they might have been told, "Hey, we're having a feast in the small hall.
Yeah.
Show up at 11 a.m. or whatever."
Yeah. Or hey, Tyrion and Sansa just got married. Come to the feast. Like, I guess we will.
I guess we have to. Yeah. But the odd thing is, why ignore her afterward? Marjorie gave her a sad look. Lady Olenna pretended not to notice her, which is odd at someone's wedding, to ignore them specifically at the wedding. And then Sansa's Tyrell friends, the cousins of Marjorie, give her the cold shoulder. And I thought, they didn't know of the Willas plan as far as Sansa knows. Maybe everybody on the Tyrell side knew, and Sansa just didn't know that they knew. But just seemed unnecessary to give her. It's not like they thought she chose Tyrion over Willas, and they were like, I'm so mad at you for that.
Right. I think the cousins one is strange. For me, the Marjorie and Olenna makes sense. They don't want to talk to her at her wedding in front of the Lannisters and offer their commiserations. This is not the right time for that.
In case something slips.
Right. But the cousins make it seem like they are blaming Sansa slightly for this, which just seems bizarre because no way on earth you would think Sansa wanted this.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to find out if more of that gets revealed.
Yeah. Yeah. But she gets she does get to dance. Tyrion doesn't want to dance with her. He feels that they've made enough of a spectacle for the those in attendance enough already. So Garland Tyrell asks Sansa to dance, and through their conversation, we discover that Willas Tyrell might possibly have been as good a catch as Marjorie and Olenna had promised that he was.
You'll have to expand on that because I've forgotten what it was he said that makes you think that.
Well, she says to him, "You really are gallant," Garland, because his nickname is Sir Garland the Gallant. And he reveals that he got the nickname Sir Garland the Gallant from Willas to head off jokes about him being kind of a bigger child in his youth. And, that he has family members such as Garth the Gross that might have been nicknames that he might gotten similar nicknames. So in order to head off any unwanted nicknames, Willas gave him Garland the Gallant, which I have to say, from an older brother's perspective, that is unusual.
Yeah, I mean, they would normally be leading the charge to the horrible nickname. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, so you're right. That does bode very well for Willas as a person. I agree with you.
But so Garland asks, he tells Sansa that his wife, Lady Leonette, is worried about Sansa. And we met Leonette a while. We met her at the breakfast where Sansa met all the Tyrells, really. And we also learned later that Lady Leonette was giving Sansa high harp lessons. So she's gotten to know her a little bit, I guess.
So Garland is not privy to the Willas betrothal plan, but he has noticed Sansa giving longing looks towards Loras. And so he tries to sort of like reassure her about her new husband, that Tyrion's actually a better choice of husband. I mean, obviously, Loras is a Kingsguard, so he couldn't have been. But also perhaps hinting at Loras's sexuality.
Right. Yeah, it's unclear.
If he wasn't Kingsguard, he wouldn't have made a great husband.
Right. He doesn't expound, but yeah, he could certainly make those interpretations there.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally the only one of the two that's available to be a husband.
Right, yes. The other one's a member of the Kingsguard.
He's better suited to being a husband, and that probably goes to what he knows of Loras.
He does pay Tyrion a nice compliment. He says that Tyrion is likely a bigger man than he seems, which, is a nice thing to say.
Yeah. So Joffrey tells Sansa that despite her marriage, he can have her anytime he wants, just like Aegon the Third or Fourth or whichever one it was had done.
It was definitely the Fourth. Aegon the Unworthy.
We know.
Yes,
Joffrey
he doesn't know. Yes, definitely not Aegon the Third.
Yeah. Joffrey and Tyrion have a fight. Tyrion threatens to geld Joffrey if he insists on the bedding ceremony where they're dragged naked to the bedroom.
Yeah, this is not the first time we've seen those two go at it. Obviously, we've had the slap in Winterfell, and we had Tyrion stopping the beating and the stripping of Sansa. But now Joffrey is a much more established king than he was in either of those two instances. So it's a lot more dangerous, and it's significantly more public. This is with all highborn eyes on the king. So it's a rather dangerous thing to do. But about the Joff telling Sansa he can have her anytime he wants, even though they'll both be married, you have to imagine that Cersei and Tywin would try to prevent or discourage that behavior. But, he is the king.
Yeah.
He can do pretty much what he wants.
I don't think he's that interested. I think he's, I think he cares more about violence than sex, Joffrey.
Yes, so. I agree. Yeah.
The violence of threatening is probably more the fun part of it for him than...
He mentions his father's behavior. He mentions his father had women on the side whenever he wanted. And, especially with what Cersei dealt with from Robert, you would hope that she would be extra vigilant to make sure such things didn't happen. I say on one hand, but on the other hand, I say that she also dealt with physical abuse from Robert and has turned a blind eye to the physical abuse of Sansa. So
yeah. I also, if Joffrey were to turn into his father, his purported father, Robert, then given that his wife would be Marjorie Tyrell, Cersei wasn't going to give two figs what happens to Marjorie Tyrell. So if she gets physically abused or if she gets cheated on, she is not going to care.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
It's sad, but very possible.
Yeah. So Tyrion brings up his first marriage to Lady Tysha, of House Silverfist, which is quite a funny name for it.
Yes.
And she describes her sigil as 1 gold coin and 100 silver on a bloody sheet, which is
which is pretty terrible. But that's in reference to
Tywin. Even I got that one.
Yeah, for any who were confused, when Tywin found out about the wedding, he gave her to the household guard. 100 of them, he each gave a silver coin to give to Tysha, and then he forced Tyrion to go last, raping her, that is, and he had Tyrion give her a gold coin because Lannisters are worth more. Yeah. And it's pretty terrible sigil, but that's what it was in reference to.
Yep. Every time we think of Tysha, we feel queasy and
yes, very
unhappy.
Much so.
Tyrion gives Sansa his resume for why he's not actually that bad of a catch. He's generous, loyal, not a craven. He's smart, unusually kind for a Lannister.
Right.
And he says, I could be good for you. And I hope Sansa listens because, they really could. They have the potential to be a mover and a shaker in this world as a couple. She has to just get over calling him my lord and constantly lying to him about how loyal she is to the Lannisters. He would much rather her honesty,
I agree. It does seem like right here, he's truly trying to make a go of this. Like, we're married. Let's make something of this. And beyond just our doing our duty of, having to get married. So, but that's not exactly how the chapter ends, but, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. I will say that I do understand Tyrion's a bit conflicted about the whole thing. Perhaps when they started to take off their clothes, he had a different ending in mind than what actually happened.
Right.
But if you were planning to go the whole route of not until you want it, my child bride route, then doing it before you get naked and you're squatting drunk and tumescent at the end of her bed is probably... If you could script it, you would do it differently, Tyrion.
Definitely would do it differently, yes. Yeah. That is, that would be good advice to give him if you were one of his groomsmen.
But hey, at least he said no, thank God. So.
Thank goodness, yes, you're right, absolutely. Yeah, and so that's how it ends. He says, I can't do it. He says, I'm not going to touch you until you want me to touch you. And she says, what if that never happens? Yeah. And Tyrion gets down off the bed and says, that's why God made whores for imps like me, which of course, possibly referencing one in particular.
Right. Yes.
So.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, honestly, it's a long dark tunnel of a chapter, but again, I wish I could just be Sansa's life coach and say, look, make the most of this.
Make lemonade out of these lemons.
Exactly. He's honorable enough to tell you he's never going to force himself on you. Well, now you're just a couple who can make plans together,
Sure.
You can always say no forever if you want to. He's given you that option.
Right.
In the meantime, you are the heir to Casterly Rock and the second heir to Winterfell as a couple.
Yeah, although, as
he has been
Tywin
told
keeps
never
telling
inherit.
him, yes.
but their children might.
Right, that's true. Yes.
Although, actually, I've got to say, if I were Tywin and tried to be Tywin, I think I would prefer Tommen over the child of Sansa Stark and Tyrion.
Probably. Yeah.
But it depends. I mean, it could be, because it would not be incestuous, it might be a nice kid. I'm not sure
Right.
Tommen's awful yet. But...
Right. He doesn't seem to be, but he's very young.
Yeah. Do you have some background for us, Mackelly?
I do have a little bit. So Garland, like I mentioned earlier, Garland tells Sansa that Willas was protecting him from an unwanted nickname by giving him the moniker Garland the Gallant First. Garland mentions having an uncle nicknamed Garth the Gross, as an example of an unflattering Tyrell nickname that unfortunately stuck. Well, Garth is uncle to Mace Tyrell, so great uncle to Garland. Aside from his unfortunate moniker, he's also held the title of Lord Seneschal of Highgarden, since his brother Luther Tyrell, Mace's father, was Lord of Highgarden. It's basically the top steward of the castle. And fittingly, the Tyrells once held the title of High Steward of Highgarden during the rule of House Gardner. That is, until the last Gardner King was killed in the Field of Fire. Harlan Tyrell, the High Steward of Highgarden at the time, surrendered Highgarden to Aegon the Conqueror and promptly bent the knee. Aegon the Conqueror then promoted Harlan to Lord of Highgarden, Paramount of the Mander, and Warden of the South, and the rest, as they say, was history.
So comparison with the television show. So I've been catching up a bit on the TV show, because often what I do with the TV show part is I go looking for the scene that corresponds. But I spent a little bit of time sort of watching around this to sort of see what I'd missed, you know, and sort of, so I caught up on a few things. There are a few differences I'd neglected to take note of. The Tyrell's plan was to marry Sansa to Loras in the TV show. He was not in the Kingsguard at the time.
Oh, okay. Oh boy, she'd really be devastated now after that loss.
The plan was actually being hatched by Varys.
Oh.
On behalf of the Tyrells, that plan was being hatched.
Okay.
Tywin met with Olenna Tyrell. That was Diana Rigg and Charles Dance. So good, that scene.
Oh, I bet.
That scene was so good. I bet George Martin, as he watched that scene, was like, I should have made those POV characters from the start. Just for this. Just for
right, just for this.
Yeah. So they meet to discuss matters. Tywin wants a further bonding of the two houses by Loras marrying Cersei. Olenna objects, but Tywin threatens to put him in the Kingsguard. That's the threat.
Okay.
But then he says something I didn't quite fully understand about this leading to a withering of the Tyrell name. But he has two brothers. I don't think they ruled the brothers out of the TV show. I think they're part of the TV show too. So it didn't quite make sense to me. But anyway, all this leads to Tyrion and Cersei whining to each other about their father's machinations steamrolling their feelings, because they both end up in betrothals they didn't want.
Right.
Sansa is forewarned by Tyrion himself in a scene which is just everything that Shay does in the TV show makes the TV show better. So she's like combing Sansa's hair or something when Tyrion arrives, and Tyrion says, "Can I speak to you alone, Lady Sansa?" And Shay says, "No, I want to hear this." And Sansa's like, "Yeah, I trust my handmaiden." And he's like, "Sometimes people feel like they want to hear something, but it would be better if they heard it in a different context." But Shay's like, I'm staying.
I'm staying put.
As I mentioned, Sansa cries to Marjorie. Marjorie actually points out several of Tyrion's saving graces. It dawns on Sansa that Marjorie has it worse. Bronn advises Tyrion to wed one and bed the other.
As Bronn would.
As Bronn would. Then Tyrion gets a dressing down from Shay, which is going to leave some marks, believe me. Yes. At the wedding, the Tyrells are present at the wedding. Obviously, this in the TV show, it was much more public, the plan, and the Tyrells were just sort of like railroaded into it because they couldn't stop it. Cersei has a scene with Marjorie, which is like this whole part of the TV show reminded me of how much I enjoyed the TV show, because watching all these scenes, I was just like, oh, this was so good.
It was right in its prime, right there.
It was so peak. So Marjorie arrives and sort of like links arms with Cersei and calls her sister, and so Cersei apparently apropos of nothing, relates the story of the reigns of Castamere. And finishes it by saying, if you call me sister again, I'll have you strangled in your sleep. The whole time, Marjorie is like waving and smiling at everyone in the crowd, sort of. But the whole time, the smile is getting less and less, further and further from her eyes. Joffrey is as odious as Joffrey is. And as I said, Joffrey actually actively removes the steps to make the difficulty with the cloak.
Okay. Yes. Right.
Joffrey specifically on the TV show says that he could sire the Lannister children on Tyrion's behalf, and that would be better for Sansa. So he's not just saying he could do it, but he could also be the father of her children. So that actually made it even more sinister in some ways.
Yeah.
Tyrion gets drunk and makes the same promise to Sansa. She makes the same riposte about, I might never say yes. But then his line is good after that. He doesn't say the thing about the whores. Instead, he says, and so my watch begins. So I'm telling you that TV, those few episodes where this sort of like all played out were really strong.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I really enjoyed catching back up on it. Pedantry. I didn't find anything in this one.
Yeah, me either. There was one bit between the dancing and the talk of the bedding ceremony where Joffrey rips Sansa's sleeve, but they had separated they danced together for a bit because you change partners in the dance. And then there was like 3 or 4 partners after Joffrey before she ended back up with Sir Garland. It was like the 4th partner. And then Joffrey says, we're going to start the bedding, and Tyrion says, I'll geld you. And Joffrey grabs Sansa's arm, and Sansa tries to pull away, and he rips her dress. And I thought, how did they get back together? But that's easily explained. He could just walked over to Sansa, so it was nothing worth mentioning.
Yeah. One other thing from the TV show, this is kind of unsubtle of the TV show, I thought. Before Tyrion announces the plan to Sansa and Shae, there's a scene where Sansa and Loras are sort of courting one another, and Tyrion and Cersei, who are now in the know about the plan that's going to be announced, are watching them, and they're sort of discussing how miserable they're all going to be, all 4 of them, But when Loras and Sansa are talking, they're talking about sort of how they imagine their wedding day, and Loras gives chapter and verse on the beautiful dress that his bride will be wearing, including the colours, the material, the decorations. Right. Even Sansa raises an eyebrow at some of this.
That's clever. Yeah, it's weird to think of Cersei and Tyrion commiserating over something.
Right, yes. Tyrion asks who's going to be the most miserable. He said, I think Sansa. He said, although Loras is about to descend into her. So, news and notes, what do you have?
On his blog, which is called Not a Blog, we reference it fairly regularly, George Martin provided some really cool insight into what Casterly Rock is like both inside and out. And he went into details comparing it to his inspiration for the castle/rock, the Rock of Gibraltar. Turns out Casterly Rock is significantly larger than the real-life rock, but both real and fictitious rocks have halls, chambers, caves, galleries, and such. Yet, Casterly Rock has many more features, from grand halls to dungeons and fanciful things that they don't have in the Rock of Gibraltar. He also mentioned, which I thought was really neat, that he plans on having a POV character take a trip to Casterly Rock. So we should finally get to see the place with our own eyes, or at least through the eyes of the POV.
Yep, cool. Yeah. He also mentioned that shake-up at HBO Max has had some effect on Game of Thrones spin-offs, but not House of the Dragon. I mean,
obviously,
this is the thing. If I were an executive at HBO, I'd be like, see how well that one did? Why don't we keep rolling these out,
Right, yes, until they stop.
Right, but some have been shelved, but George Martin's not too concerned. He figures that something can be put on a shelf, it can be taken back off a shelf. He said he's been working on the Winds of Winter, isn't it? I've forgotten the name of this thing. It's been so long in the pipeline.
You're right, yeah.
He's also been working on Winds of Winter, but unfortunately that's one of a list of many projects that he's working on, not the only thing he should be working on.
Right, as we'd like it to be.
Yes. We have a new sustainer at buymeacoffee.com. Vanessa became a sustainer and sent us a very nice email, and she said that she did a beer nose snort. I'm getting the words wrong. On one of our Rickon jokes.
A spit take with beer?
A spit take with beer, yeah, basically.
I like your phrasing better.
A beer nose snort, yes.
Yes.
Something like that. Vanessa, I'm sorry if I'm painting you in a bad light here. I don't intend to.
Yes.
But I do approve of drinking while you're listening to us. That makes a lot of sense to me.
It definitely does. We probably a lot more tolerable and entertaining if you've had at least some alcohol in you. So thank you very much. It's very exciting to have you on board. Very much look forward to interacting with you. Also, please keep up the rating and reviewing on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We are still leading everyone on Spotify in our niche, but we've got lots of catching up to do on Apple Podcasts since we're newer than a lot of the other Song of Ice and Fire podcasts. So please keep up the good work. We very much appreciate it.
We certainly do. Let's conclude. So obviously, it's just awful for Sansa. She's too young. Being that young, it's just abominable that she's been forced into this. But Tyrion is one of the Seven Kingdoms' good, air quotes, guys. She could do an awful lot worse. For instance, her previous betrothed.
Sure, absolutely.
If she can overcome her revulsion, hesitancy, and learns to speak the truth in his presence, they really could become a powerful couple. She, I think, is smarter than we think. She hides it. She masks it a little bit behind sort of like the fairy tale princess thing, and he's very smart and decent. And between the two of them, they could do much good if they could. If they could make the most of their power.
Yeah, and I really do think if Sansa, or really any wife, was loyal and loving to Tyrion, that he would give up his visits to the brothels and even Shay, I'd like to think.
Except I wouldn't like to think that because I am Team Shay.
You are Team Shay, yes.
All I want is what's best for Shay. Everything, the whole Seven Kingdoms can go to.
But so the marriage was not consummated. So that the Tyrells are not the Tyrells. The Lannisters are 0 for 2 in their recent, basically forced marriages being consummated. Obviously, Tyrek Lannister and baby Ermistad Hayford did not consummate the wedding. God, I would really
fingers crossed.
Yes, I don't even know that would be possible. And now here, this one is not as well, and that it means something for the marriage not to be consummated. Unconsummated marriages in Westeros can be annulled more easily than consummated marriages, although Tysha and Tyrion prove otherwise.
Right.
We learned back in, I think it was like Brand 5 or so of A Clash of Kings, that sometimes witnesses are actually present for the betting to make sure consummations occur.
Right.
And I'm kind of surprised that didn't happen in this case, since it's so important to Tywin that it does happen.
I think the ideal choice would have been Shay.
Right. Yes, I'm sure that would have gone really well. Yeah. Also, the chapter ends with Tyrion getting down off the bed, saying, "I'm not going to do this." And it leaves you with the possibility that maybe they didn't even sleep in the same bed together. In which case, if that happened in Westeros, that's considered bad luck for bride and groom not to sleep in the same bed on their wedding night. So, that's not great.
Yeah. Well, I don't think either of them are wishing for an awful lot of good luck for the wedding, for the marriage itself. They perhaps wish good luck for themselves, but not the marriage.
Possibly. That's possible, yes.
So how does this affect the escape plan with Dantas? It seems that Dantas might have spilled the beans to cause all this. Does it... I mean, I think he felt that her marriage to Willas would derail his rescue plans. Does her marriage to Tyrion derail his rescue plans? Or does it change nothing?
Right, yeah. Yeah, the original part of the plan was to wait until the hustle and bustle of the royal wedding, the Joffrey Marjorie wedding, when nobody be paying attention to her, and then whisk her away at that point. Well, now she's technically a Lannister, and she might have more eyes on her, especially her husband's.
Right, she'll certainly have a seat at a higher table than she would have done if she was just a captive visitor Stark.
Yes, that's possible.
Yeah.
I wonder if Tyrion might be like, take me with you. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm all for this plan, whatever it takes us.
You got any secrets brewing that I might latch onto? And how do the Starks react to this news? I mean, I think on the one hand, the Starks will discount the marriage as completely,
Sure.
fake, but they'll be absolutely horrified at the thought, because he was, to a lot of the Starks, he was a gargoyle, a monster when he visited. Now, to a couple, he kind of like presented a different face, like when he came back from the wall with the plans for the saddle. I think Jon didn't treat him very well. No, Robb didn't treat him very well. But I think Robb did think that was kind of nice of him. So he's the impression of Tyrion in the Northern forces might be a little bit mixed, but it's going to make them angry. It's going to make them angry that they chose Tyrion as the forced husband.
I think they will look at it at a lesser level, but similarly to Ramsay Snow and Danella Hornwood, that, this was not of Sansa's choice.
Right.
And therefore it should be discounted. She was forced into this wedding.
Yeah. Let's hope Sansa has a better outcome than Danella Hornwood.
Yes, very much so, yes. But, based on how the chapter ended, it seems like you're going to get your way, and Tyrion is still planning to see Shae.
Hang on a second. Let me just restate my opinion here. I want what's best for Shae. I'm not saying that that's necessarily best for Shae.
That's true. Yes, that might not be.
He's her meal ticket today, but I want her long-term health and well-being.
Right. Yes. But Tywin, he made good on his plan here. At that small council meeting, he told Tyrion, "You're going to marry Sansa," and sure enough, he just married Sansa. Well, that wasn't the only wedding he announced at that small council meeting. So might we soon be hearing wedding bells for Cersei and Willas Tyrell?
And next week we're back to Arya, carrying on her multi-chapter hunt for Lord Beric Dondarrion. Seems to be. He can't be killed, but he can't be found either.
It's hard to kill him if you can't find him, I guess.
Yes.
Yes, the wild goose chase. Will it finally come to an end? We'll see, I guess.
Yeah. There are 3 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a positive review. You could buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. I got a nice t-shirt for Christmas. Or you could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. Become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level, where you'll get your episode a day early and ad-free.
That's right. Just like our newest sustainer, Vanessa. We're very excited to have you. And of course, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com, or you can go out and follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhal. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.